Hi, friends. I'm Father Kerry Walters, pastor of Holy Spirit American National Catholic Church, and this is another Holy Spirit moment. Many people today believe that philosophy and religion are not only incompatible, but are actually contradictory to one another. Fundamentalists from all of the faith traditions tend to think that philosophy erodes religious faith by calling it into question. And professional philosophers tend to think that any philosophical enterprise that includes religion or faith is thereby tainted. Probably the most biting expression of this philosophical skepticism when it comes to religion was voiced by philosopher Martin Heidegger when he said that a Christian philosophy, or I suppose any religious philosophy for that matter, is like wooden iron. It is an absurdity. It is a mingling of two things which simply are incompatible one with another. Well, that's the common story today, but it's not always been the common story. And in fact, for most of recorded human history, it most definitely has not been the common story. The separation of religion and philosophy really only occurred in the 18th century during the Enlightenment. For centuries prior to that, the two were not only not seen as contradictory, they were seen as complementary. Ancient Greek philosophy accepted the complementarity of religion and philosophy. Plato certainly voiced the complementarity, and it's the case that the medieval period, that great flourishing of Christian philosophy, likewise accepted the complementarity. Now, it is true that religion can become debased, for instance, if it becomes fundamentalist, and philosophy likewise can become debased. But I think that philosophy and religion, in the best senses of the two words, have at least four characteristics in common. And those four characteristics show them, I believe, to not be contradictory. The first characteristic is this: they share a sense of wonderment at the world. The religious person and the philosopher looks at the world around him or her and is amazed at its beauty, at its complexity, and at its depth. Wonderment doesn't preclude curiosity, but curiosity focuses upon specific phenomena. Wonderment embraces the whole, and it encourages receptivity, openness, deep listening, and sensitivity. That's the first characteristic religion and philosophy have in common. The second is this: very often interest in either religion or philosophy is sparked by a personal experience or a personal moment in which we either find ourselves in the depths or we find ourselves in the heights. Frequently, a crisis, a tragedy, will provoke us out of our sleepwalking, will jolt us out of taking existence for granted, and we will begin to enter into a sense of wonderment, a sense of why. St. Augustine expresses this beautifully in his Confessions when he says that the death of a dearly beloved friend suddenly made him, Augustine, a profound question mark to himself. He was propelled by unpleasant circumstances into this sense of wonderment. But we also know that joy and love can propel us into a sense of wonderment, can encourage us to see reality as the thing of beauty and depth that it is, can discourage us from sliding on the surface of existence. So personal moments can elicit the wonderment that both religion and philosophy share. Here's the third characteristic, and I've already suggested it earlier when I talked about the distinction between wonder and curiosity. Both religion and philosophy are interested in the totality of things and in finding an ultimate explanation or reason or purpose for them. Both religion and philosophy ask deep questions such as, why is there something rather than nothing? Why am I here? This interest in the totality of things immediately propels one from, for example, a scientific examination of a particular phenomenon. Although scientific examinations are crucially important. The fourth characteristic that both of them have in common is this. They're both actually verbs. Both religion and philosophy are active terms because practitioners of both are encouraged to incorporate what they discover about the totality of things, to incorporate the wonderment that they feel in their own lives, to incorporate their memories of personal moments into the way they behave in the world. The philosopher seeks a way of life that will lead to a rewarding and flourishing and good life. And the religious person does the very, very same thing. In the 11th century, the philosopher and theologian and monk Saint Anselm adopted as his motto this: Fides quaerens intellectum, faith seeking understanding. Now, St. Anselm certainly didn't see an incompatibility between religion and philosophy, and by faith-seeking understanding, he appears to have meant this. To have faith in God is to experience a loving trust in something beyond oneself. And whenever we love an object, we naturally yearn to learn more and more about it, because learning more about the beloved brings us into closer contact with the beloved. So philosophy, which can help us understand more about God and about the world that God created, can actually serve as a handmaid to the loving trust or faith that we have in God. Philosophy, the word philosophy, of course, literally means love of wisdom. That which motivates the philosopher, at least the philosopher in the traditional sense of the word, is a love of reality. And of course, the more in which we love something, the more we want to discover about it. So the philosopher and the religionist are both motivated by love, are both motivated by the sense of wonderment that either breeds or is the consequence of love. Both of them are shooting for the ultimate explanation of reality. It's just that they approach it in slightly different ways. So my friends, religion and philosophy are not at all incompatible. That's a myth created by the 18th century Enlightenment. And I think that we would all be better off, both of those of us who are on the religious side and those of us who are on the philosophical side, if we stop the petty squabbling and recognize that each side has a great deal of light to shed on the other. I'm Father Kerry Walters, and this has been another Holy Spirit moment. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.